Welcome back to the Positively Jacked podcast, where we will dish real-time strategies on the nutrition, fitness, wellness, and lifestyle trends to prioritize positive psychological habits and best practices. Our goal for each episode is to relay helpful information and topics relating to health, mental and physical, nutrition, lifestyle, and habit formation. In addition, give real-time strategy or RTS to anyone that can help them apply in the same day to benefit themselves. It's been a minute.
Ironically, our last episode was when motivation ghosts you.
Yes, but it wasn't motivation that ghosted us. It was we went through a very detailed season of life change.
Yeah.
That we will dive into, along with a few other things that fill that, like Jess's motivations for the change, my motivations, how we see the trickle down of brand stewardship in the particular affiliate and brand that we were with CrossFit. We'll go into my why and route beyond managing an affiliate, and we'll wrap up with quite a bit with the details of what Positively Jacked has been up to and will be up to in 2025.
Awesome.
So if you want to dive right in to start, I will say that Positively Jacked podcast, Positively Jacked XP, me and Jess, we have no affiliation anymore with our previous affiliate in Columbia, Missouri. And I will let Jess take her perspective from there.
Way to go. Just throw me off that cliff.
No, it's just set it up. We got to make sure people know.
We got to set it up. I think it's broader CrossFit, really. I think, we are on the tail end of some pretty big announcements in the CrossFit space, to be honest. We are a week out from the Open, I think. Yes.
This week.
Yep. Affiliate prices went up after the new year. And so not only are we starting to hear athletes who aren't returning to competition, but we're hearing about affiliates who have dropped affiliation. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of reasons, not just price, not just what happened at the games, but just there seems to be some overall shifts in brand perception, affiliates feeling support from CrossFit HQ. And that's trickled down to a lot of coaches I've talked to as well. I think everybody's just kind of in an unsettled place. And last week, Ben Bergeron did a podcast about why he left. And a lot of those reasons really resonated with me as to why I felt like I wanted to leave. Mainly, I feel, well, first of all, I don't live in Columbia anymore. Let's start there. I don't live in Columbia anymore. And so, sorry, Neil is food prepping us at the same time that I'm recording. I don't live in Columbia, Missouri anymore. And so it was difficult to feel like a part of the affiliate we were with, but all of my friends were there, right? And not just like, friends I've had for a couple of years. We're talking 10 plus years. Mm-hmm. I was with Fringe for 12 plus years and always in a volunteer, whatever I can do. It was family, it was community. My good friend was at the birth of my child. Mm-hmm. People were just an integral part of our lives. And I really wanted to maintain those friendships and not just walk away because I had to move. But, in the past year, maybe year and a half, it just felt like our team was seemingly unhappy, is probably the best way to put it. There was just this general sense of malaise. And I was always that person, I feel, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that, anytime there was a problem, a disagreement, a member dispute, anything, or people were unhappy, I would go in and I would try to fix it. I was always the person who's like, okay, we got to do something about this. The health of the business, the health of our friendship, that's paramount to anything. And moving away puts you off the pulse of knowing what those things are. all the time. But even from here, I could sense that people were unhappy. But I just hit that point where I'm like, I don't know what I can do anymore about that, you know? And I was constantly a volunteer. Nobody offered to pay me more. I was always just a trade employee. And so it was twice the effort it was when I was there for what felt like a lot less back, other than the fact that you were all there. So, and then, you know, going back, it's the trickle down. There's an issue with brand stewardship in CrossFit right now. And a lot of people are doing a lot of the extra work and legwork that it feels like HQ should be doing. And there's a general lack of leadership and brand definition or quality control. And that trickles down. Yeah, it trickles down to the affiliates. There's a general lack of support to be consistent and deliver at a high level of quality in CrossFit. And I've seen that. I've been to a lot of affiliates, and it's a wildly different experience where you go. And a lot of people who get into the business of owning gyms don't know, or, you know, aren't aware of all the aspects to keep your business healthy. And one of those is your staff and the leadership of your staff and the setting of the goals and stewarding your staff through their development and keeping their development at the forefront so they stay productive and stay happy. Like that's a skill. That's a skill I work on every day at work. You know, that's what I train high level leaders to do. It's not all that unlike training high level athletes. And it just felt like that was just missing from HQ, missing from the education that they provide coaches, which is amazing, but it's missing that aspect. And so it felt like I was just constantly trying to bring that, and it wasn't there.
Yeah. I have very similar feelings on that. I think, especially from the HQ side of things, my situation was a little bit different. I don't want to stop you if you're still going.
No, you go right ahead.
Yeah, my situation was different because I was there every day and almost literally every single day. And, you know, the various hats that you wear when you're running an affiliate, all the way down to making sure cleaning is happening, coaches are happy, volunteer staff's happy, everybody's, you know, trying to do all that while managing the membership, while also being as much of a leading example for not only the coaching side of things, but also the business mission and vision, and all of that while it wasn't mine. And at some point right around the games was when you and I had a few talks. I had a few talks with a lot of the staff members, and it was one of those times where you stop assuming, or for myself, I stopped assuming that anyone that I felt had a hand in my career would lead so as though I thought they should. And so I decided, okay, my career is in my hands then. And the smartest thing to do was to put some very smart boundaries and double down on the things that I know I'm good at, and the things that are required outside of that would still also be in my control or in your control, because you are my business partner now. And so, yeah, when we got back from the games, and, you know, I've always known CrossFit had issues higher up the chain, but the longer the games, post-game stuff unraveled, as well as some things at our affiliate, the less I felt confident that my position was not only secure, but also valued by people who had, again, a hand in my career development. So I knew it was the time to step away. And I think it was the best move, because while there was some friction stepping away, ever since it happened, we've had nothing but amazing success story after amazing success story. And right now, the work that you and I get to put in, mind you, I am still coaching locally at another gym. And alongside that, our roster of athletes is expanded. Our roster of gyms that we are helping with their operations has expanded. And, you know, I think we started the beginning of the year realizing like, oh, wow, this is actually like, other than putting up a post that we were open, quote unquote, we didn't do any calls to action. We didn't do any advertising, nothing. And in those 2 months following leaving the affiliate officially, we gained more clients. We gained more traction. And it wasn't because we were trying. It was just because it was almost as though it was the next evolution for us. And anything outside of us was just waiting for it to happen. And people pounced. We had people reaching out. What about coaching? What about this? What about that? And we came into January with a nutrition challenge, stood straight up, had former members, former friends and stuff like that join in with us. We had our weekly calls. We had athletes getting ready for competitions. And there was just so much momentum that carried off of the end of last year that it was almost hard to even worry about what we had left.
It's so weird that you say that because that's just what I was thinking. I felt like we hung out for so long. Because like, what happens if we left? Not only what happens to all these amazing people that we love, not only our staff, but our members, but what happens to us as people? You know, you were the beginning and I came in a few years later, but you know, like if you had told me 2-3 years ago that we'd be where we are and that I would have just walked away, I wouldn't have believed you because like everybody who knew me knew that first of all, I was CrossFit and second of all, I was Fringe.
Yep.
And those were inextricably connected to who I was. And it's so weird. Every time I think about it, I'm like, I wasn't upset even. Like you said, there was friction. But once I was gone, I never really thought about it. We just had we put up that open post. We're like, because let's be clear. At first, we were like, what do we do now? Like, I think there was that moment where like you decided to leave, and we're like, well, okay, but this doesn't feel over. First of all, you're my best friend, so it wasn't going to be over. But like something still there's something there that I feel like we were still meant to do. And that's when we decided to say, what if this isn't just a podcast? What if this is supposed to be something else? And what if we dare to imagine what's possible with that?
Yep.
And I think it was over like the course of like 2 weekends where we like mapped out our business plan, what we thought we were for, who we thought we were for, goals for the next 5 years, like big goals, little goals. And then we were like, well, all you do is just do it. And then that's when we put up the open sign and it was like the floodgate.
Yeah, it really was.
And so really, I never had the chance to really be sad. And to be honest, I wasn't. And I've told Neil dozens of times now that like, that's the sign I should have left a long time ago. And I wouldn't have left you all. But now that it's over, I'm like, think of what we could have done if we would have been doing that for the last however long. If we had dared to believe that we were good enough and capable enough to do it on our own earlier.
Under our own style.
Yeah, I think, you know, that was always the thing. Well, we couldn't leave CrossFit. We need CrossFit. And you know, be clear, I still do CrossFit. I have a punch card at an affiliate here. I still do mostly CrossFit and functional bodybuilding workouts. But we can be
coach a competitor. Yeah.
Yeah, but we can be that and we can be for other people. And we are. And they work really well. It all works really well together.
I agree. I think what we realized was what CrossFit originally started as, the idea of general and inclusive fitness, is still a brilliant and awesome idea.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And so that's where we kept coming back to, was like, and then realizing that that's not, CrossFit doesn't have an exclusive hold or definition on fitness and wellness. They have a good, teachable model for coaches to be in person. And I'll say that 10 times out of 10 is that if you want to get better at in-person coaching, especially, you work with CrossFit, because that is their whole thing, is that you need to be able to deliver it to your community well. But we realized that fitness is bigger than CrossFit. Like, CrossFit had a good idea of that generalized approach, broad, inclusive. But they've started to, I think we kind of went over this in the podcast over the games episode, they've started to make it to where if you didn't define it and didn't go about it exactly as they said, which wasn't from like a leadership standpoint, more almost like a turned up nose better than standpoint, you were like ostracized, like you were thrown away, like you're not doing it exactly the way we do it, so you're wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
and you can see their reaction to, I mean, and they not being HQ, but maybe some of the louder speakers in the space, there's still like the reaction to High Rocks and other types of endurance events that they treat it as if it's at odds with what's more effective or what's better for development or who's more fit based on the event. And yeah, I totally agree. But I guess we're maybe getting ahead of ourselves. Who are we now? What are we doing?
Great question. We are Positively Jack Podcast, bringing in Positively Jack XP, which is our coaching and lifestyle service stuff. So the podcast was originally just a fun, creative expression for us, where we, again, dish real-time strategies. And then I've done remote programming and athlete work since 2014. So I've always had a roster of, at least a handful of clients. And that's ranged from military prep. When I first started coaching a team 3 years in a row at the games, that was amazing. I've coached people at semifinals. I've coached people through long distance races. And it just kind of was one of that ideas where we were like, we could take this generalized approach and make the roster a little bit bigger. And then we started getting into, well, what about you coaching nutrition a little bit more, or the lifestyle and habit stuff, similar to what I was doing? And you've been working on PN for a little bit, but this was almost that call to action of like, let's do more. And so that was actually when Jess referred earlier to us sitting down on the weekends and talking about our big goals. Those were the conversations. We're like, well, let's say we went strictly online for coaching services. What would that look like? And I immediately was like, well, I need to build to, X, Y, and Z, because this will be my full time. Like I said, I still coach locally and I still coach classes and one-on-ones, which is a blast. But this was our thing that we knew we would scale. And so with that, we started off basically opening up to, hey, if you wanted nutrition coaching to, start learning more about food and healthy habits, that's what we can do. If you wanted programming help, despite whatever your discipline was, we actually almost had like a mentality of the anti-niche at first, because we wanted broad, general, inclusive strength and conditioning to be our big priority, because not a lot of people had the best intros to that or didn't know where they could go. And we also opened it up to small businesses that ran their fitness facilities or were getting to and needed assistance from people who've done it. And that's where we're at.
Yep. Yeah, we've built a way bigger tent. I think once we took a look at like, okay, if it's not group classes anymore and we're not focused on an affiliate having 200 members, what does the roster look like? What does the type of athlete look like? What is the differentiator? What is our business value? What is our unique opportunity and expertise that we feel like we can offer people? And it was just so fun to be like, ooh, I want to go highly bespoke. I want to take really tough problems that people feel like they have, and I want to solve them. And we found all of that very quickly. And then the consulting stuff came up, because you're still attached to the CrossFit affiliate calls.
Well, and I helped one of those affiliates get back to not only profitability, but to where like they're not going to close. And that was before we did consulting as an actual arm of service.
Yeah. It's funny. As soon as like we said we were consulting, the amount of inquiries that we got where people just had, there's a lot of CrossFit consultants in the space, but your starting investment is likely going to be $10,000. Very quickly. And some people are like, okay, I might not have that money, but I do have money to invest. I might not need an overall business, like an overhaul. I need to figure out how to make my intake from my website go to the back end with some efficiency. I need tech help. I need website help. I need graphic design help. I need brand help. Well, those are all skills we have and can offer. And
I need athlete or lead intake help. I need, how do I get my coaches better at talking during NSIs and getting people to have an emotional connection to potentially joining your gym. And,
we love consulting. I think that's been so fun for us to do in a space where people are excited to talk to you as an expert and excited to pay you as an expert. And that's been, for me at least, being that I was a volunteer for so long at an affiliate, like, oh, you want to pay me? And the first time I said, this is what it's worth. And I actually like full chested said, this is what it's worth. And somebody was like, oh yeah, here. I was like,
only that?
only that? Oh, I remember when we said, one of the first people we talked to was like, that's it?
I remember the first time I quoted that for one of the affiliates that was reaching out to me. And I told them our price. And they said, is that a week? I was like, no, that's monthly. And they're like, really? It's like, yeah. And it wasn't, now mind you,
like a beaten dog at that moment.
Well, mind you, we were going from the perspective of we're new to this space, although we do know we bring value to it because of our, unique skill sets, knowledge bases. But also when you're talking about micro gym businesses, there are very few. In fact, I would say it's the minority that have the money that is required to put up for some of these larger mentorship programs. You're working with gyms, especially in the startup, where if they get to 5 to 10% profit margin, they are ecstatic. And so to ask these affiliates that are about to have their affiliate fee doubled, to pay, 5 figures with no promise necessarily that it's going to scale their growth. You got to make it, we knew we had to make it more of a small chunk, something that's like, hey, these are the parameters we're going to help with. Here's the price. And then we always preface it with like, just so you know, there are certain things that take more hours. And if those things pop up, we will bring them to the table with an additional price. And we never saw resistance. In fact, so much so that we were like, wow, we got to change this sometime soon because people are saying yes too easily.
Yeah, that was both on the business consulting side and actual client side.
Yes.
We grew so fast in that first month. We're like, I think we got to consider a change. There's only so much we can do as two people, and fortunately, we have great spouses and a great best friend who hopped in and started helping as well. So
that was another thing that I feel requires mentioning, is that the second we did this, the amount of people that wanted to be involved with it with us from the start, was overwhelming. And to anybody listening, thank you for that, because that was just not only like, I would love to have a job for everybody where I could promise to pay you whatever you needed. That's fantastic. But just to have that vote of confidence to where we took a pretty big step, and to have all of our people just like, hey, I want to be in on that. It's like, I'd love for you to be on it, but I got to secure a few things first.
I gotta get my stuff in order first. I have to have processes and a way of working for just the two of us before I can start thinking about adding people meaningfully and doing it the way that I know that we would want to do it. Like there's a certain level of care and quality that we said right away has to be present at all times for both any arm of what comes out of,
Right.
our effort. So, but there was that moment where like we both announced this, and it was like you would think that we had been on an island somewhere or escaped from a prison, and people were just so excited and also saying like, well, it's about time, or
Yeah.
why didn't you do this sooner? And then we were, of course, like I said earlier, like, why didn't we do this sooner? Like,
it all happened how it was supposed to happen, supposedly.
Yeah, supposedly. And
Supposedly.
it's fine.
But here we are closing out our second. So we'll say that November 2024 was when we officially posted up that we were open to receiving clients.
Yep.
By the end of the year last year, we had 3 businesses we were consulting with and assisting with, and a decent roster of athletes. We were about to launch our first online nutrition and habits challenge, which ended up being a blast. Wednesday night chats were awesome. We had plenty of people, something as simple as accountability and reminders to drink enough water and get enough sleep were profound. It seems like every week or two, we've had at least a handful of requests for consults or a free consult to talk about the offering services that we have. We've had people reaching out to us, where's the podcast? Like, where's the podcast at? And so that led us all up into February. And now we are both clear of the first 6 weeks of the year, which was the challenge. You had a ton of work, a ton, alongside getting the flu twice.
I got the flu twice in 1 month.
I got it once,
I did.
right at the beginning of the nutrition challenge, which I was also running a nutrition challenge here for the gym that I work with. So that was fun.
We were insanely busy for the first couple months.
Yeah. And so we're finally getting our heads up out from that. And it's not none of it has been bad. It's just been a lot to juggle.
Yeah.
In the best way.
Yeah.
And we finally were like, hey, we miss podcasting. We miss talking. We miss dishing a little bit more. And so we were like, all right, let's get this podcast back up, because we actually have a lot of exciting things to talk about that are coming this year. Before we go into that, do we want to start with the highlights from the beginning of the year other than the nutrition challenge?
Yeah, I think we could. Just a couple of quick nuggets.
First one, shout out to our guy, Patrick, who we've referred to many a times, Jess's other BFF, who is in Colorado. I've been working with Patrick on countering his high mileage running. Patrick is a ultra runner, and me and Patrick started working together, about 2 years ago?
Yep.
Worked on nutrition, worked on fueling, and mostly on strengthening his body up. Last year, around the same time, he ran a race in Colorado for 24 hours. What was the name of it again? I'm trying to remember.
Running Up for Air.
Running Up for Air. And 24-hour race in February and January in Colorado, up and down a mountain.
Yeah.
Last year, he got 7 laps. This year, he got 9. We are about to post a big shout out to him, because the amount of not only mental fortitude, but physical toll and fuel that you have to do for that. It's such a bar. And that was one of our first athlete highlights of this year. The second one was my CrossFit athlete, Hannah, who had a shoulder injury that prevented her from really pushing in the open and into quarters last year. Not only has she rehabbed it, got on a team of 3 at Wadapalooza, but now she's qualified for the Monster Games in the RX division after throwing up some redonkulous numbers in certain parts of the workouts. Trying to think if there's anything else.
Just a host of, we did a habit nutrition challenge, and just some amazing stories coming out of that we're excited to share. We've been interviewing people like crazy over the past few weeks, or you have. So there's that. One of our Run Club members, Rebecca Last, just finished a Disney run today.
Disney half marathon.
Yep, that's insane. And she's not a client of ours specifically, but she is in the Run Club that we run on Facebook. That's been fun to start.
And on Strava for all
and
you
on Strava.
runners out there that use Strava.
Yep, we are on Strava. We've obviously kicked off a bunch of consulting. So we are working with Village Strength and Conditioning there in Como and getting their website and their processes set up. And they've seen a huge amount of growth, over the past 6 months. And that's been exciting.
Yep. I've been working with Jody, shout out at CrossFit Falcon View in Colorado Springs, getting a lot of stand up, getting her website edited, getting more leads for her. She's not necessarily new, but newish to the ownership and affiliate. She bought this affiliate not too long ago. But we've been building up on her business, getting her ready for the open, position for more people. Still working with Watchtower and our friend Kevin and Shannon over there while they keep building out Watchtower and amazing things for WheelWOD and the adaptive community. And that's all been in the last 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Just the last 6 weeks while we were getting the flu. And
well, and also you have a ridiculously over full-time job. I'm coaching and classes and individual clients locally. So like we have other stuff, but for just the PJ and PJXP.
Well, we added Patrick to staff. So Patrick's now coaching with us as well. So we hope to start building out his client base as well. So Patrick is not only Nate's client, but he's been my friend since 10th grade in high school. So in addition to Nate being my best friend, Patrick is my other best friend, longest term friend. We talk almost every day. So he'll be on the podcast soon.
Yes, absolutely. I can't wait for that either because he's a brilliant guy. When it comes to especially endurance running, the combination of Patrick and my wife, Kels, who's, Division I runner from Michigan State and just the littlest, fastest person I've ever met in my life. Between those two alone, we have some pretty cool stuff getting ready to launch in the spring for people who want to run further on their own 2 feet than they've ever run before. And I couldn't be more excited for that because that to me is something where I think the two of them as a team with us supporting them could have such a cool impact for a select group of people.
Yeah. But I think that's been honestly the best part. It's broadening who we can reach and seeing how many different types of people have reached out to us now that we're not singularly in the CrossFit space, and getting to finally be really bespoke.
Yep.
And work with people who have some deep goals and things they want to solve for or things they want to get better at. And so the level of complexity we've been able to do in our coaching and our work has been the most fulfilling. So dynamic. So
I've loved it. I've loved every bit of it because me being the primary coach, like I've been able to, I think my roster right now is between 22 and 26 athletes. And it ranges from, CrossFit competitors and Patrick doing his ultras, but it also goes to people just wanting better help with strength and conditioning and how it can make their lives easier for whatever they're planning on doing.
Or just even things like we worked with people in the challenge on like meal timing, better sleep, like all these 1% factors that make up into the big picture that, we have people who have worked with every coach under the sun or every macros outfit under the sun and never saw the results that they say they see with us because we take the time to really focus on building and pulling the levers in the right way.
Yeah, that actually still goes down as one of my favorite compliments we've ever gotten.
Yeah.
Is that they've tried, I want to say it was at least 4 or 5 other well-known programs. And I'm not going to throw them out, but like it is nutrition coaching brands that focus on macronutrients and calories and, taking pictures of yourself and stuff like that. And while those measures have a place, our approach is a little bit more, I want to say human.
It's human, but I think it's also, and I was telling my boss about the same client the other day. I said, it's taking all the effort that you're doing and what those programs are getting you and maximizing it or making it work best for you
Mhm.
by considering the holistic picture and how all the pieces and parts work together. Because like we've seen people work so hard when they're given these maps or working with these macro coaches and the numbers, and they're not seeing the results they want because of all the other factors that aren't covered by those programs. And we cover those so well. I feel like that's our superpower.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's not only that we can get the results, but make it work for the lifestyle and the happiness that you hope to have with the results.
Yeah, you don't have to change who you are to get those things,
right?
Or your cadence of life. That's probably the biggest one. Is that I always tell people it does me no good to assign you macros and a calorie count if I don't know if you know how to cook.
Right.
And that statement alone, people just look at you just like, oh yeah, and it's like, okay, so let's address that first. And yeah, so that is what Positively Jacked and Positively Jacked XP have been up to and will continue to be up to throughout the rest of this year. Exciting, really close things is next week we launch our weekly newsletter, Weekly Spark. I think that's the Positive Spark.
Positive Spark. We didn't want to put any dates or cadences in it.
Right. So, well, the Positive Spark, which will be just our newsletter of like, real-time examples of people we've worked with. Obviously, we're not going to share crazy details about stuff because I still think like certain things about the coaching and details that we talk about with people, unless they tell us flat out, we can use it. We try to honor their privacy and stuff like that. But we'll put out, 4 examples, and we'll put out resources that we've built for groups or individual clients because we think, the opportunity that was presented to us with a challenge, right? We said that it's been dynamic. It's made us really on the ball as far as creating resources that can be both very individualistic, but also used for a broader audience.
Yep.
And so that's what we've been doing is just anytime we have a resource that we create, we just kind of share it because it benefits people, it adds value. And for us, it's exciting because it gives us even more of a reach.
Yeah.
What else do we have coming?
The run program with Kels and Patrick.
Yes, that I'm really excited about that. We're ironing out some more details, but essentially the details are it's a 16-week program. It is a complement of strength along with running. The idea is that you want to, at the end of 16 weeks, go farther on your own 2 feet than you've ever gone before. And so it could be couch to 5K, it could be 5K to 10K, 10 to 15K, 15 to a half marathon to full marathon. It almost doesn't matter because the program is scalable. And so if anybody's out there listening and you're like, I have no clue how far I can go on my own 2 feet, we could show you.
With a supportive community.
That is, yeah, absolutely. That will be called Miles to Grow, which I still love that name. So keep an eye out for that. And
working on the start of possibly a programming track.
Yeah.
For H2.
Yep. So, and it's not meant to be anything that's like, I don't know. It's not meant to be like 5-6 days a week. The idea is that lifestyle wise, if you can get 3, maybe 4 designated training sessions that are similar to, the CrossFit approach, broad, general, inclusive, using big movement patterns, quote unquote, functional movement patterns. But we also really like to involve progressive overload and some linear or like undulating strength components because there's something to be said for weekly consistency on specific areas. And then so it's a good combination of linear and predictable meets creative and challenging.
Yep. Delicious and satisfying, makes you feel good.
Yep. Exactly.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, no. And that's the idea is we're trying to meet people with where they're at. And a lot of people want fitness, but they don't know for what, and they don't know necessarily how to start.
Yep.
And so those are coming in the next 6 weeks.
Yep.
I would say, along with more podcasts, because we
have a
heard you.
backlog of topics. Yeah, we
Yes.
definitely heard you. I'm sorry.
We have a backlog of topics, but we will be launching these probably in every 2-week cadence, somewhere in and
Yeah,
around there.
right now with our current client load, we probably need to do bi-weekly.
Yeah, and so obviously keep an eye out for the podcast episodes to stay in tune with everything we are doing. I will start to plug us a little bit more like a podcast or a YouTube, in that click, like, subscribe, and share, because we're doing this I'm doing this full time now. Jess is doing it as full time as she can, while also holding down her ridiculous badassery. Sorry, explicit now on the Spotify, but for her job. And that's the goal, is that we do want to grow. We do want to scale.
Yep.
And one of the things that I really loved that Jess and my wife and a few other people pointed out, because as Jess mentioned, we have done recent testimonials, and I always feel uncomfortable doing testimonials from people, because I don't like necessarily utilizing or wielding that in an effort to like sell. But I was told to not look at it that way, and look at it more like this is giving people examples to see themselves in. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so people we work with have similar struggles that people we haven't worked with. And so being able to get their voices out does a great job at giving people someone to relate to. And so easy way to get more people to relate to it is like, subscribe, and share. And, if you feel so inclined.
Yes, absolutely. We would love to work with you or just hear from you.
Yep.
So now we have the space to create those conversations more freely, without conflict. And so we're excited to do that.
And on that note, that concludes our first podcast of 2025 as Positively Jacked Podcast and PJXP Coaching and Nutrition. What do I have to say again?
We have to say stay positively jacked.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's a given.
Yep.
Stay positively jacked, people.